And I think the biggest thing that I learned in that race was that no matter what, I never give up. And make her second Olympic team and just threw it out the window, and all that hard work for fog, basically, for something she can't control. And so, it was really tough for her and for me too, because,
you guys are a team,
Yep.
work together, travel together, everything.
Yeah. And so it's kind of a different role. I went to the Olympics in Vancouver, and, she was on the sidelines. And for me, that was, I'd say, even more motivation to try to push myself to do well. And
for her who couldn't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went and put down one of the best U.S. women's finishes ever at that Olympics, and was that close to getting a medal. But like I said, it was great motivation for both of us, because, for her, she's like, I can do that too, because we're one of the same. And then for me, I'm like, we were so close. Let's go for another 4 and see if we can actually do it that time.
Yeah.
So we, again, process started all over again, another 4 years of training. And then 2014 Olympics, Sochi, Russia. It's always a different experience in Russia, but same trials process. We get down to the final trials, both heavy favorites to make the team. I wake up the morning of the first race, sore throat, runny nose, things like that. Not what you want or can have.
Not the ideal conditions.
Yeah. So I raced, which, your Olympic trials, you have to try. And it basically just put me under it. Ended up bedridden the rest of the week. Couldn't get out of bed.
No.
Just because you try too hard. And at that level, it's dangerous. You push yourself too hard. And so I knew at that point it was over. So I laid in bed and I watched. I'm like, well, it's the same 4 years ago, but flipped. I get to watch Tracy, and she had the best races of her career. So she made the Olympic team, and they went to announce the team at the end, and she turned and looked at the coach, and she said, I declined my spot on the Olympic team. And she did that because she knew that next person in line was me.
Wow.
And she wanted to give her spot on the team to me.
Dang.
I had been having a really, really awesome year, and she thought that the best chance for an American at those Olympics was me. That's her opinion. And so,
what was that like? I mean, that's just a crazy thing that your sister did for you. And obviously there's that love, that connection, that training together, but that's just really powerful for her to just do that. And how did you handle that, or what was that experience like in that moment, where she shared that?
Yeah. So it was one of those situations where I'd say that moment changed both of us. If you're a twin, I think you would probably understand. A lot of twins would understand, because there isn't anything we wouldn't do for each other.
Yeah.
I know a lot of siblings and like, well, I would never do that for my sister or my brother. But twins kind of share a special bond.
Yeah.
And, for us, it was like, if she did well, I was just as happy because, we trained together. We did everything together. All her success was my success, and all my success was her success. And so, for us, it was different. And, she looked at it from a very selfless standpoint, where she's like, I want the U.S. to do the best. And I think that you are the right person to do that. And a lot of people think that, that's crazy or whatever, but she had been in that position 4 years prior, where she basically saw her dream of going to the Olympics just disappear. Yeah. And for no reason other than weather, something that she couldn't control. And she thought, well, in this moment, I have an opportunity to change that and give someone a second chance. And so she did that for me.
That's cool. That's very powerful. So, and special. So, yeah. So from there, what did that Olympics look like?
Yeah. So I think, that Olympics was probably, especially that last Olympic race, would define my entire career and Tracy's. So when I went out, it was kind of a battle with our organization to actually get to race. A lot of politics involved and things like that, which, it is, there's politics and everything. Yeah. But I finally got one opportunity to race, and that was the last race. And so knowing that, and knowing how much it meant to Tracy and the world, because there was people from all over the world watching and things like that. And I went out and I tried too hard, and I think the biggest thing that I learned in that race was that no matter what, I'd never give up. And I think, I was going around the course, and it was one of the hardest courses we had ever raced. It was, every year they kept making the courses harder and harder, steeper, uphill and downhill. And it was just hard. I mean, to the point where the athletes weren't enjoying it, but it was fun to watch, because we were all suffering.
It's true suffering. Yeah.
But yeah, so I get out there on the first half of the race, and I'm doing pretty good. I was shooting well and things like that. And then, I had pushed too hard in the beginning, and once you push too hard at a certain point, you bonk, basically.
Yeah, you just become too exhausted to focus or just to continue. Right?
Yeah. And so I remember skiing around the course, and there was this really long downhill that whipped around, and I remember going down there, and they were carting off one of the Japanese girls. She had flown off the course, and and when you're racing, and especially when you're, I'd say at one of your lowest moments, when things aren't going well, especially under pressure like that, all sorts of things pop through your head. Things like, well, I can still do it, or I can't do this, or, all these positive and negative emotions and things like that. And for me at that moment, I thought, if I just flew off the course, that would be my excuse for not doing well. And, a lot of people make up excuses and things like that. And I've never been one to make up excuses. You have good days and you have bad days. And that day was not my day, but I learned more in that day than I have in probably most of my Olympic career. And I kept pushing, and went around, shot, went out on my last loop. And by that time, a lot of people had already left, and coaches had left. They knew I wasn't going to win, so they're like, I'm out of here.
Oh my gosh!
And but that that
that's
happens.
Just it's just
part of it. And so I was skiing up that last big nasty hill by myself, and I'm like, you know what? Even though I'm not going to win a medal, I'm still going to put forward my absolute best for my country and give it everything I have.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't win that day, I gave it every little bit of energy I had. I went and I collapsed the finish line, and I was so thankful that I didn't quit.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people, you know, it doesn't matter what you're doing in your life. Olympics, it could be just work for the day, something like that. If you just push through those challenging times, you'll be happy and thankful that you did.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, that speaks to so many people, just like you said. I mean, pushing through and never quitting, no matter what it is, the matter of exhaustion and everything else, is you just put it all out in line and gave it everything you had. And that's something that I think everybody can learn, no matter where they're at in life. And just that mentality of never quitting. And you were doing it for your sister, you were doing it for your country, you were doing it for yourself, you were doing it for, you know, everybody, you know, and it was just, yeah, I mean, because these races aren't short, right? It's not like they're running 100 meters and they're done in, you know, less than 10 seconds.
Yeah, this was a 15K, so it lasted around 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe a little longer.
And your heart rate is going, you said 180, and then you're trying to shoot a gun and at a target, and then you have all the positive and negative stuff coming in and out of your mind. How do you do that? Because there's no way that I would be, I mean, I could try, but
well,
I would do my very best.
What I say to people is you can do, and I firmly believe in this, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah.
And, you know, you look at Tracy and I, and even my older sister. So she's a surgeon, right? And she's one of the best surgeons in the country. And I think that, and you look, we came from Durango and
small town,
not a lot of opportunities. And when we were growing up in Durango, it was just a smaller ranching community, you know, and a lot smaller back then, and not the same opportunities that there are now, and not the amount of sports that there are now and things like that. And, you know, there wasn't necessarily anything special about us, other than we just pushed really hard and kept going.
And you worked harder than anybody else.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that a lot of people always ask me, what's the key to success? You know, and I think that they're looking for like that easy button. Yeah. And that especially, you know, people always ask me, you know, well, how do I lose weight? How do I get in shape? And my answer to all that is hard work. Hard work and never quit. And, yeah. And I wish there are things that you can do to be more efficient, that are easier. Absolutely. But if you're willing to put in that hard work, you will get the results. Absolutely. You know? So. Yeah, I feel like that's hard, because I know you've coached 10,000 people, and, you know, I've coached baseball, football, you know, different people in life. And I just feel like it's hard. Some people, like, I don't know, I struggle with this. Maybe you can help me. Like, there's just some people who get it and have it. And there's some people who you can push to that level, but then there's just, I don't know how, there's some people who just don't know how to, or don't want to, weren't taught to. It's not in their DNA. I don't know the right answer to it, but how do you get some of these people who maybe want to, maybe they just don't know how to push themselves to that level? How do you teach that? Yeah, for me, that's easy. And it's just, like I said before, you can do anything you put your mind to. Okay. So the key to anything, business, real estate, life, sports, success, is mastering the mind. Yeah. You know, and it's our mind that always gets in the way of what we want to do. You know, how many times, you know, you're trying to do something, how many times does something pop in your head like, you can't do this, or this is stupid, you know, stop now, or whatever's going through your mind. Learning how to control those thoughts, and learning how to master the mind, think positively, you know, things like that. It's so important. Your mind can only think of one thing at a time. We say we multitask and things like that, which we do, but we're basically doing one thing subconsciously, like talking on the phone, and the other thing we're thinking about driving because we've things like that. So if we think about being hungry, we're going to be hungry. If we think about failure or losing or missing or falling or things like that, we're going to do those things. So it's all about changing your mind to always think positively. Like, as cheesy as it sounds, self-talk and things like that are so important. Yeah.
Yep.
If you let those negative thoughts creep in your mind and let them win, they're going to win.
Yeah.
Because our negative emotions are so much powerful, unfortunately, than our positive, happy emotions.
Yeah.
And, there's times where, so your mind is your biggest tool and your best asset. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better than any muscle or anything else on the rest of your body. How they say someone can worry themselves to death or, die of things like that. Your mind can do a lot of things. It can make you better. It can make you worse. So it's all about controlling what you think about.
Yeah. What are some of the tips or tricks or things that you've done? I mean, you mentioned self-talk, but what are some of the disciplines maybe with keeping that positive mindset that you do now? Because you're still competing competitively, maybe back also with the Olympics and everything else. What are some of the disciplines that you did then or still do now?
Yeah, so that's it's one of those things that you kind of have to train. It's not going to just happen overnight, and it's but once you get it down, then it becomes subconscious, and you don't have to think about it. It just happens naturally. For us, like for example, when we ski around a loop and then we come into the shooting range, there were 30 to 50,000 people behind us screaming and cheering and TV cameras everywhere and stuff like that. So, and our heart rate was 180 beats per minute. So to get in that mindset where you switch over from a skier to stop and do a skill sport of shooting and calm yourself down and actually be steady enough to shoot a target at 50 yards, the size of a silver dollar, it was a mindset switch. And so we had to learn how to relax in that situation because you come in, you're really tense and things like that. And so we developed what we call a keyword, and people can use this for anything in life, whether you're getting up to give a speech, learning how to relax in that situation, or going in to talk to your boss, learning how to relax in that situation, or, anything. There's a million different things we can come up with, but creating a keyword. So basically, anytime you work on something that helps you reach your ultimate goal. So for us, anytime we went out and trained, we'd say our keyword and then do what we were working on. So say someone's getting up to give a speech. So while you're practicing your speech, you'd say the keyword could be anything. Come up with anything.
What was your example when you were in the Olympics? What was your guys' specific keyword?
Mine was relax, and Tracy's was like tree or something like that, because it basically distracted her completely.
Pushed her away.
Anything.
And would you say that out loud, or would it sometimes?
No, just in your mind.
In your mind. Okay,
yeah,
relax.
and so every time we worked on something, we'd repeat that word, and finally it became self-conscious, so that when we come into the range, say your word, and boom, like that, your whole body
automatically happens.
Would just relax, and it got to the point where it was such a strong response that I noticed when I'd lay down at night, subconsciously my mind would be repeating the word relax, and I'd fall asleep at the drop of a hat.
Wow.
And I slept really good for the past 20 years just because of that keyword.
Hey, that's a good tip right there for those of you struggling with relaxing and sleeping at night, because I know a lot of people do. You can train your body just to have that keyword and just to relax like that, then you just have that. Yeah, that's interesting how your brain works. Yeah.
Oh, your brain can do anything like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing tool if you utilize it in the right way.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And I know for me, as in business, there's all kinds of keywords, or maybe not keywords, but things that I do. Self-talk. I read a letter to myself every morning, and I do it out loud because I think for me, I think faith comes through hearing, and in order to hear something, it has to be spoken. And so I think for your brain to understand certain things, sometimes it does have to be spoken.
Yeah.
So I do that sometimes, or I do that every morning, and I do different keywords. I know like Michael Jordan, he used to hold up the next championship before like that next playoff game or whatever. If he's going on number 3, and he would hold up number 3 because he's saying, hey, I've already, in his mind, he's already accomplished it.
Yep.
And that's probably why he was so great, and he had an action to go with it too. It wasn't just like he was holding up number 3, like, hey, I've got number 3 championship, even though he hadn't already done it. He already did it in his mind.
Yeah.
And I feel like athletes understand this a lot better than others, but I feel like you can transition it to anything in life, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your business, whether it's communicating with somebody. And yeah, I think you hit it perfectly. Like, your brain is the most powerful tool that you have.
Yeah, we did a lot of the same things. Like, we put on our mirror, the refrigerator, things where you actually looked a list of all the things that we wanted to accomplish, but did in a way, just like you were saying, where I'm the 2012 Olympic or world champion, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you read it, the more your mind believed it. And, so every one of those goals and things like that, you'd read it every time you looked at it, so that it helped reiterate that positive feedback, instead of like, I hope I'm this or whatever. But even things like forcing a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Right. When you smile, your body releases different hormones, and just by forcing a smile, you can flip the switch to make things more positive. And one big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is you have control over your emotions. And most people realize that, but they don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've always done is every morning when you wake up, you have the choice whether to decide right then and there, is it going to be a good day or a bad day? If you wake up and be like, look out the window and it's raining, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a horrible day, you're probably going to have a horrible day.
Yeah.
But if you wake up at that moment and be like, I'm going to start out positive, I'm going to have a great day, tell yourself I'm going to have a great day.
Yeah.
You're already setting yourself up for success.
Yep.
If a lot of things may be outside your control later on, that might prevent you from having quote unquote a good day,
a great day. Yeah.
But I think that by controlling your emotions and looking at things differently, I look at every negative experience I've had in my life and as a positive one, because I learned something from
exactly.
those.
Yeah. There's a saying, like, I never lose. Either I learn, or I'm butchering it right now. I never lose. Either I win or I learn.
Yeah,
and I think that's a mindset that I try to continue to have in anything. And I think smiling too. I mean, that's funny you say that. When I work out, maybe I'm doing like a CrossFit workout or something, and if I just smile, it seems silly, but it makes it easier. Almost like I'm like, oh, this is not that. I mean, I'm suffering, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. And I don't know. There's just something about it that. So there's another great tip right there. Just smile. Or saying, one of the things I like to say is, today's going to be the best day of my life. And maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But by saying that, you're setting yourself up for that. Or today's going to be the next best day of my life, or something like that. And it's powerful to say, and it changes the way. You're right. It changes the way that you approach the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very powerful. So after that year in the Olympics, what was next?
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting. So Tracy and I, having had such a long Olympic career, we saw a lot of athletes, either by choice or not by choice, end their Olympic career and be like, well, what's next? Because when you're an athlete, everything in your life is that sport.
Yep.
And there's nothing else. Family suffers, friendships suffer. We missed out on our entire young adulthood, college experiences that most people have, things like that, because we are so fixated on our sport, and you have to be.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also life after sport.
Yep.
And so we, having watched a lot of our teammates get to that point, whether they wanted to or not, and really struggle with it, we decided it's going to be on our terms, whether we, so that we'll be prepared and things like that. So we decided that 2014 was our last Olympics, and planned out a retirement and, things like that. And so our big thing, being twins, we wanted to take all those things we learned and pass them off to whoever would benefit from them.
Yeah.
And, some of that was military law enforcement on, how to shoot with an elevated heart rate and in stressful situations.
Wow.
And, some was, we did, I don't know how many schools we went to for motivational speeches on how to live healthy, active lifestyles. And we did a lot of things. I became an artist. Tracy started a business called Check Outside, renting camping gear and all sorts of stuff to people who, live in cities or don't want to buy that stuff for a weekend here or there. And we just did a lot of different things, kept ourselves really, really busy, and enjoyed a little bit more family and friend time.
Yeah. Cause you're right. And I think I had a ton of friends struggle with this because just playing college baseball. And when anybody's done with their sport, it's hard because they did it since they were little and it was almost a part of their identity. And then all of a sudden it's done.
Yeah.
And so I think there's definitely athletes who struggle with, some kind of, maybe depression or some type of understanding who they are, or how can they, it's a part of their identity so much they don't know how to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's good that you guys had some type of plan, and then you saw other people struggle with it, and you wanted to help other people, get through that. So that's powerful. That's awesome. So what are you doing now? It's kind of, you talked about it a little bit. You're an artist. Let's touch on that a little bit. So what type of art, where do you get your inspiration from, all that fun stuff? Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I'm a trained artist because I didn't necessarily pursue it in school.
Yeah.
But I started at a young age and drawing horses. Obsessed with horses when I was little, but and just kind of developed it over the years, kind of my own techniques and things like that. And I took one beginner art course in high school, and then one in college. And it actually became a way of Tracy and I paying for some of our schooling, because we were living in one year, a couple years we were training. We were living up in northern Maine, going to school there.
Yeah,
that was where our team was based. And so we were right on the Canadian border, and I'd do a bunch of artwork, and then we'd drive up to Quebec City, and then we'd sell it on the streets.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and so
fun experience.
That helped us. One, it helped us learn a lot about business and, wheeling and dealing, just things like that. And then it really helped us pay for our school and things like that, what wasn't paid for, and kind of helped us in that way. And so I kind of developed that over years. It's the one thing that can get me in a seat long enough to actually focus, because I always like to be active. And when I'm doing artwork, it really helps me focus on it. And so I've developed a lot of different techniques, tried all sorts of different mediums. I think the thing that I like most, and that I've been doing mostly, is the white charcoal on the black, on black paper, because it's the complete opposite of what you'd normally do.
Yeah.
And so it kind of works the opposite side of the brain. And again, it's more challenging. And I guess I'm weird like that I like anything that's challenging. And in 2018, I was invited, one of 3 artists, to help with the Olympic art project at the Olympics. Because a lot of people don't know this, but business, art, and I think design or architecture or something like that used to be in the Olympics. Like, people competed way back in the day, like not during modern Olympics, but that was part of the Olympics. And I think the International Olympic Committee is looking to kind of bring some of those things back, just as so that this was kind of a way of dabbling in that, see how it works, how it looks like. And it wasn't a competition for us.
Sure.
But we brought there's always been an art aspect at the Olympics, with the opening and closing ceremonies, and whether it's music or there's a lot of art involved, sculptures and things like that. So what we did is we set a world record for the most number of Olympians to complete a painting.
Oh,
so
cool.
We did one canvas for each sport, and then we put them all together, and each sport, all the canvases together made the Olympic rings.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of a neat, they put that in the Olympic Museum in Switzerland.
Okay.
So it was a neat project to be a part of, and just something different, a different side of the Olympics that I hadn't been a part of.
Yeah, no, just totally different side of the brain and different everything. But yeah, no, I think there's something powerful about music, something powerful about, art. So that's cool that you kind of tapped into that side. And you said it's something where you can actually sit down and do, and I'm sure it's almost stress relieving in some ways and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of times we would be traveling and we'd be in, say, Siberia, and I didn't speak Russian, so it's not like I can watch the TV, and you only, and back then we didn't have Kindles or iPhones to read books or things like that. So we had just regular books and normal books, and you'd go through that, and we'd pass them around as teammates, but you'd run out. So my escape was artwork, and it kept me busy. Again, if you're sitting around thinking too much about the competition, you get nervous and you're wasting energy and things like that. So art really helped calm my nerves while I was on the road.
Nice, interesting. So with art now, what does that look like for you? As far as, because I know I looked at some of your stuff, it's good. So I mean, can people purchase this? What does that look like?
Yeah, so people can purchase my art at theolympianartist.com, and I would say majority of the artwork I do now is for charity.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of time to do commission pieces for people. I'll still do them on occasion, but I get way more requests than I have time for, unfortunately. Yeah. At some point I'm going to, slow down a little bit and kind of tap into that world more. But now, because I take the Olympian part very seriously and giving back to communities and things like that, I do a lot of artwork and then donate it for auctions or, different fundraisers and things like that.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So that's a great way just to give back, and that's awesome. So one day once you're done competing again, because you're still competing, you'll maybe have more time for the art.
Absolutely.
What are you competing in now?
So I retired. Both my twin sister and I retired in 2014, and then I continued on in just regular shooting sports. Mm-hmm. And Tracy retired completely and had two beautiful little children. Nice. And I'm still competing and teaching a lot of courses and things like that, trying to inspire.
So you
people.
said you teach like police officers and all kinds of different professionals with shooting. What are some of the things that you are teaching, or what are some tips that you can give? Because I know, like hunting, like I know when an elk walks in front of people, like your heart rate's starting to go. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you teach, I guess?
Well, exactly. Like you said, if someone goes out on a hunt, you're going to get that boost of adrenaline, and it's going to be a lot more challenging to hold steady. And that was one thing we mastered in biathlon, is how to do that in extreme conditions, with people and cameras and snow and, competitors next to you and things like that. So essentially, whether it's law enforcement or, it's someone out hunting, or it's for self-defense, or if it's someone just out at the range wanting to beat their brother, things like that. It's the physiological and psychological responses you have are the same, but at different levels of intensity. Okay. So if, let's say, law enforcement, for example, if they are in a situation where they're, in an engagement situation where they are defending someone, or they have to draw their firearm, or, someone's in competition, that's essentially the fight or flight response. But for the law enforcement, where it could be a life-threatening situation, their response is going to be at a higher level than the person in competition.
Okay.
Or the person out hunting. You're going to have the same things are happening in your body physiologically, but obviously the one for military and law enforcement where, those guys essentially with their life on the line, that adrenaline and that physiological response is going to be a lot more severe. So it's just teaching people how to learn how to control those responses so that they can act appropriately or be able to maintain a certain amount of accuracy, things like that, because that's important to be able to keep your cool essentially in those situations, whether it's out hunting, because you want to make sure that you make a good quality shot and, the animal doesn't suffer. And same thing for law enforcement. They want to be able to, in that split second, decide, am I going to engage or not, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of the tips and things that you kind of give them or go over?
Yeah. So one quick tip I can give is, focusing on the things you can control. Okay. And we can't stop our heart.
Yeah.
In biathlon, I wish we could. Everyone always says, well, why didn't you just drop your heart rate down to 40 beats per minute, then it makes the shooting easier. We can't do that. No. And it's a good thing we can't. We can't stop our heart. But we can control our breathing. And so essentially, by taking a couple of quick, really deep breaths, it tricks the brain physiologically into thinking that you're going back to homeostasis, either in an adrenaline type situation or a physical type situation where you have some sort of exertion. Okay. By slowing down your breathing and kind of controlling it in a big, deep manner, your body's like, oh, we're slowing down, we're stopping, I'm going to calm back down and get everything back down to normal or homeostasis. So it relaxes the body. There's a lot of different physiological responses it makes, and it can make things a lot easier. And it's the same in situation. If you get up to give a speech, and you take a couple of deep breaths, it really helps. It helps relax you and things like that. So learning how to do that automatically as opposed to thinking about it can really help. Yeah, no, I can imagine. So you just 3 quick breaths, you said? Like, give me an example. Yeah, so really deep breaths. You want to get deep breaths. Yeah, and it's to the point where your lungs are as full as they can be. Okay. And do you hold that, or do you just? You just hold it for just a second and then let it out. Hold it for a second. And when you're like, say for law enforcement, if they're in a really tough situation, you're not going to be able to do it slow and hold it. You can't. No. But just 3 quick, deep breaths are going to help reset the brain and the body to help you kind of relax a little bit more. And there's so many different things that go into it besides that, but that's just one. I know I kind of put you on the spot with that quick tip. Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it and training and things like that, but that one really helps, focusing on the things that you can control. Because when you go into the fight or flight response, there's so many things that happen. Your pupils dilate, your body is essentially getting ready to fight or flee. And so you get this boost of adrenaline, endorphins, all this different stuff. Yeah. And what people don't realize is, again, that's something that you can control. You are basically given superhuman powers for a short amount of time. So, and you hear a lot of people freeze in sticky situations, and that's basically because they're letting their mind overtake the rest of their body and they freeze. But if you learn how to control those things and how to use that boost of superhuman powers for that short amount of time, then you can do amazing things. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that's something that anybody could learn, whether it's for self-defense or whether it's you're in law enforcement or whether you're hunting or all even just giving a speech, like you said. Yeah, because you're essentially your blood flow increases, so you have more blood going to your brain. if you overcome those nerves, it can help you deliver your speech better.
No, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it can help you in any situation in your life.
Nice. Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome. So we kind of touched on, the kind of the top 3 accomplishments. I mean, what else are you doing now? You said, I mean, it sounds like you're giving back a lot. You're coaching, whether it's with skiing, soccer, shooting, self-defense, nutrition, life coach, all that kind of stuff. Well, is there any specific one of those you want to kind of dive into or talk about?
Well, I mean, one thing my twin sister and I have been doing a little bit, there's a couple organizations out there that take out terminally ill kids or kids with life-threatening or debilitating illnesses.
Okay.
And we'll take them out for adventures outdoors and things like that. And that's been, it's tough, but it's been so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, those kids, they teach you so much about life, and their experience and their outlook is absolutely amazing. And so that's one thing that I've really enjoyed. And it's, I'm also right now, I'm the director of commercial sales for High-Vis. It's an international company that makes sights for handguns, rifles, and shotguns.
Okay.
And I signed on 2 years ago, and I didn't think I would like it as much as I do, and I absolutely love it. And I think what I like most about it is people. And I've found that in most situations in my life, if you surround yourself by really incredible people, then even if it's something that you necessarily enjoy doing, you'll enjoy doing it. And it makes it worth it every day, and helps you get through those tough, challenging times.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's powerful. So what is your role with that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm the director of commercial sales. I handle all the domestic and international sales.
Okay.
And it's handling accounts like Bass Pro, Cabela's, Shields, your mom and pop shops, accounts in Germany and Australia and all around the world. But yeah.
And you just connect with the people, and you're just part of the sales team, or what is that?
Yeah, so I oversee just all the commercial side. We have 2 rep groups that handle different parts of the country and oversee them, and just try to bring on more accounts and grow the business and things like that. And
nice.
Yeah.
And that's been, and with that, is it more just educating, the companies on what you guys have to offer, or what does that look like?
Oh, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's as my role, I've kind of adapted a little bit, going out to teaching courses, to helping explain to people why your sights on a firearm are important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people
explain that to us.
Well, yeah, for me, it's simple. You have something, say you purchase a firearm. To me, the most important thing are the sights, because if you can't see what you're aiming at, you might as well not pull the trigger.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So to me, it's one of the most important parts of it. You start with that. That should be the most important part, and then from there you build on top of that. Sights as your foundation, because it's going to help you see what you're aiming at, help you to be more successful, and just make the experience that much better and help you become a better shooter. Nice.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into some of these questions that we had, and then we can touch on some other things too. So, what's kind of been the biggest challenge you've had with your specific role right now, and how are you kind of overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge for me, again, that goes back to the Olympics too, but for me right now, being the director of commercial sales, being still competing, being an artist, doing speeches around the country, being a volunteer, teaching courses around the country too, is doing too much.
Yeah.
So learning how to balance and find that balance point. Learning how to say no.
Yeah.
For me, that's the hardest thing in the world, to say no to anybody. because I want to help everybody. I want to do as much as I can before I die. But realizing your limitations and realizing that you can't do everything.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's hard. I think I struggle with that too, because I like to please people, and I like to help people, and I like to give, and I like to do all that. So yeah, it's definitely something like managing your schedule and learning to say no is when you're learning to say no to something, you're saying yes to some other things that are more important. And I think that's something that I've struggled with, but I've learned. So that's good. Good. That's really good. What's the biggest surprise you've had over the last couple months, and why?
That would be easy. It hasn't necessarily been formally announced, but whatever. Tracy just joined us at HiViz.
Oh, awesome.
At the company I work at. So she's going to be working with me.
Fun.
And so just to be able to work with my twin sister and the incredible team that we have there, I'm just really excited about that. So that's just been kind of a big present for me, I think, because, I always tell people, together, Tracy and I make the perfect person, but separate, we're kind of missing things. The twins that got split right down the middle. And, there's things that she's better at, and there's things that I'm better at, but together we can just accomplish so much more. And, I think that's one thing. Like I say, that's God's biggest gift to Tracy and I, is that he made us twins. And when you're a twin, you have to take advantage of that. Not everybody has a clone, essentially, to help them be more efficient, learn, push each other, things like that. Because, if you had someone there that was exactly like you, that was like, hey, Kyle, get up and do that. On days when you didn't feel like you wanted to, it would push you even more, that much more. And so I'm excited to see what we can accomplish.
Cool. That sounds powerful and like dynamite that you guys are going to be able to. I mean, you made it sound like you guys can like take over the world because you guys have each other, which is cool. Like to have that connection, that relationship, that person on your side. And I think that's important to have. So that's cool.
Yeah. I wouldn't say take over the world.
I didn't mean it like that. I meant like the mindset, maybe.
We can change the world.
Change the world is a better way.
Yeah. But
take over the world.
Well,
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That was our goal in biathlon, was to take over the biathlon world. Yeah. So that, you're not that far off.
That's funny.
Yeah.
This is a fun question. If you had an extra $10 million, what would you do with it?
For me, that's easy. I take that Olympian role very seriously. So even though it's not like we have to go out and volunteer or give back to our community, most Olympians, you are a role model, whether you like it or not. And so, and I've always taken that seriously. Whatever I do, I always say a kid could be watching right now, and it doesn't have to be a kid. You could be a role model to older people too, and I definitely have in certain situations. But I would take that money and probably spend it on the next generation, helping them to pursue their dreams and have the opportunities to do what I've done. And not in a way where it's like a handout, but a hand up.
Yeah, like an empowering way.
Yeah. Because I think there's way too many handouts right now. But I think if you learn how to be successful, like we talked about, through hard work, but taking those people who are kids or whatever that are working hard, and
giving them the tools that maybe the tools that they're missing are extra pieces to get to that next level.
And maybe some of that for kids that are terminally ill, or kind of like the Make-A-Wish foundations and things like that, where give them the opportunity to experience something that they really want to do.
And that's really that's awesome, and that's why I love having you kind of on our show, is because that's what the show is all about. It's all about giving back. And because I had a mentor once tell me, like, go find someone with fruit on the tree and go learn from them. And I think the greatest thing that anyone could ever give somebody is their wisdom. And I think that when that can get passed down to people could make, they wouldn't make the same mistakes that maybe you have made, or they could learn from you, and your ceiling could be their floor. And it's just, I think it's just a powerful thing to be able to give back. And so, yeah. So just to hear you say, hey, not only would I want to give back with my wisdom and knowledge, but also with, finances is really awesome. So I admire that a lot. So how do you continue to learn and stay on top of your industry? You're kind of, I would say people probably learn from you to stay on top of the industry, but what's something or resource, or how do you continue to stay at the top of your game?
I think learning is something you can do from anyone. It doesn't matter who they are. And we talked about this a little earlier before we jumped on live. And literally, a lot of people say, well, who do you look up to? And for me, it's most of the people I work with, most of the people I'm around. And, they may not be necessarily superstar athletes or celebrities or things like that, but they motivate me and they inspire me, and I learn from them. Everybody has a story. Everybody's been through something. And whether they know it or not, they have knowledge and experience. And like you said earlier, knowledge and experience is so powerful, and much more powerful than power and money and things like that. And so you can learn something from anyone, and that's just what I try to do. Every person I encounter, I try to learn something from them. Yeah,
no, that's good. And I think some of the people that I've learned from most have been people with maybe the least in other people's minds. There's been people I've sat with, on the streets that are homeless, and they've taught me compassion. It's like they're trying to share something with me, and it's like, whether it's their food or something like that, it's like, wow, like you have pretty much nothing, and you're trying to give to me. And it's just like, those things are the things that I feel like can, change the world. So, what's been the biggest, failure over the last maybe year or life that you feel like could help other people?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest failures I've had in life is, I've had so many that it's hard to keep track of them all, but, just failure in sport, failure to recognize that I'm not invincible, things like that. I think, one of the biggest things that I've learned is that it's okay to admit that you're wrong, or okay to admit that you've messed up on something. And, especially with this new role I have with High-Vis, I jumped into the director of commercial sales. I'm not a salesperson by trade. I have sold products and things like that for companies and been a representative for companies, but as an athlete, and so I didn't dive into that role traditionally. And accepting the fact that I don't know everything, and I am outside my element sometimes. I think that's okay. And a lot of people, they're afraid of admitting that they're wrong, or admitting that they don't know the answer, things like that. But that's okay, because if you don't, it just gives you the opportunity to figure out what it is and learn and grow. And if you revolt against that, essentially say, well, I'm right, I've got to be right, you're cutting yourself short to be able to learn how to properly do it. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is just accepting that you don't know everything, and that failure's okay. Because it leads to success if you learn the right way.
That's good. I think, it's almost that concept of taking one step back to take, 3 steps forward, or even, with humbling yourself, admitting like, hey, I don't know, it allows room to grow from people who maybe can teach you, or can, and I struggle with that too. I think, a lot of athletes maybe have pride and, stuff like that. And
especially as an Olympian, everybody expects you to know everything and be able to do everything. And there's times where I don't. I've experienced so many different things, but I don't know everything, and I'm not good at everything.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because that's what I want to do, is learn how to do those and figure out how to do them before I die. So.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. What's the biggest area related to your role you're curious about, and why? Or what are some of the things you've been researching most recently?
I think that for me, that's a tough thing, because I'm always trying to learn in everything I'm doing, whether it's competition or the art or the teaching, or my role with High Vis as the director of commercial sales. So I think what I'm curious most about is, and I always have been, is just how people tick. Psychology is always one of those things that's really fascinating me, and learning how to understand people, because everybody's gone through something in their life, and especially
everybody has a story.
Yep. Everybody has a story, and a lot of times if you look at someone's past, especially their childhood, as children, we're so moldable, and shapeable, that we can be easily influenced, and that will help determine what kind of a person we are later on in life.
Yeah.
And so by looking at people's past and taking time to listen to them and understand them, and, get to know them, you can understand why they do things the way they do. And it helps you learn how to work with them more efficiently.
Yeah.
And helps you to understand them and why they do what they do. And I think just makes the world a better place, because there's so few people that actually listen now to other people. And I think that if we take the time to listen to people and understand them, we can definitely learn how to work with them better.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I think, being able to understand the other person and what they've been through, or just like you said, listening to them and trying to understand, why do they react like that, or why do they respond like that, or obviously, like you said, psychology is interesting, and I have a minor in psychology, and I never thought I'd use it, but I use it every day. Yeah. But it's just the understanding of this person, and maybe they're this way because of that. But what you said really is taking the time just to listen to them, and I think that's probably what a lot of people just need sometimes, is just someone to listen to them.
Absolutely.
And that's good. I like that. I learned something right there. So what is something I should have asked you that I didn't?
I don't know. We covered so much.
We did.
I think that, and I think we already touched on this, but to go back and kind of reiterate to people, kind of my biggest takeaway from everything that I've done in my life is that there's no replacement for hard work. And if you really want something, just go for it. Put in that time.
Yeah. Motivate
yourself. Find ways of motivating yourself, because you can do anything you put your mind to, and you just have to find a way of motivating yourself to do it. And everybody works differently.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's say if someone has a weight loss goal or something like that, and they want to lose 20 pounds, maybe going to the gym and working out is not your thing. But walking a dog, or tennis, or swimming, or figuring out what makes you tick, what makes you happy, because if you figure out how to make yourself happy in your pursuit of your goals, you're going to get there quicker, and it's going to be that much better experience, and you're going to have more motivation to do it, and you'll actually reach your goals.
That's really powerful. So figuring out how to be happy in pursuit of your goals.
Yep.
Like doing activities, not just you're not just suffering because you're supposed to do it this certain way like everybody else. It's okay, what's a different way of accomplishing this goal that will make me happy?
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's good. You're smart. That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we loved having you, on our show. Really appreciate it. If people wanted to follow you or just to kind of follow your journey, where could they find you?
I have a website, lannyoakley.com.
Okay.
Social media is Lanny Oakley on Instagram and Facebook. So you can find me there. And Lanny Oakley is basically a play on Annie Oakley.
Yeah.
So one of my goals is to try to become the modern day Annie Oakley.
Cool. I like it. I think you will, or you have. So
still working on it.
Nice. Well, love to have you on the show. Appreciate your time and a lot of wisdom, a lot of great knowledge. So if you enjoyed our show, make sure you give us a like, a follow, a comment, and we'll respond to them. So just really appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right.